The academy grounds always felt different at dawn, quiet, mist clinging to the running track, flags barely stirring, the faint hum of barracks waking up one room at a time. It was the kind of morning that made routines feel sacred. And into this ritual, steeped calm, walked the newest cadet, Alex Torres. She arrived with a single duffel slung over her shoulder, her steps steady, her expression unreadable. Most new arrivals stepped out of the transport truck. Why? Died overwhelmed, whispering to each other or fumbling with gear. Alex stepped down like she'd been here before in another lifetime. No nerves, no hesitation. Just a steady stride and eyes that took everything in quietly, the layout of the grounds, the distance between buildings, the observation cameras, the cadets jogging in formation. But the academy wasn't looking for her calmness. It noticed something else entirely. She's tiny. One cadet muttered to another as they passed her, "Looks soft." The other chuckled, "Hope she lasts a week." Alex didn't react. If she heard them, she didn't show it. She checked in quickly, responded with clipped "Yes, sir," and understood, to the officer at the desk, and walked toward the dorm wing. Her footsteps echoed softly in the long hallway, and for a moment she felt a flicker of peace. A new chapter, a chance to disappear into normal life, a chance to be just Alex instead of what the Navy had shaped her into. Then came the first stare. 4 cadets stood near the stairwell, arms crossed, leaning against the railings with smug confidence that only came from being upperclassmen. They looked her over slowly, too slowly, some smug curiosity, some eagerness to test her. She recognized it instantly. Reed, Turner, Briggs, Jace. She didn't know their names yet, but she already knew the type. Every academy, every base, every training ground had them, the ones who established dominance by picking a target, usually a quiet one, usually someone new, usually someone who looked like they wouldn't fight back. Alex held their gaze for a second, calm, almost bored, then walked past them as if they were furniture, but that only made them more interested. By afternoon, the whispers had grown. Rumors layered themselves around her like a cloak she didn't ask for. She didn't introduce herself. She doesn't talk. She's scared. She's hiding something. By evening, 4 pairs of eyes had already decided what she was: weak, the perfect new girl to break in. The sun had just dipped below the trees when Alex finished her orientation run around the grounds. She wiped the sweat from her forehead, tied her hair tighter, and headed toward the gym to cool down. But the closer she got, the quieter things felt. Too quiet, even for dusk. She stepped inside the building, expecting the usual: weights clanking, cadets bantering, instructors barking reminders. Instead, she walked into silence, and 4 shadows waiting. Reed was the first to step forward, tall and broad, shouldered, jaw clenched in a smirk that tried too hard. Briggs leaned against the wall, arms folded, muscles bulging from unnecessarily rolled sleeves. Turner kicked at the floor like he was warming up for something, and Jace closed the door behind her with a soft, final click. She didn't flinch. Instead, she placed her water bottle on the bench, her movements steady, calm. Too calm for their liking. Reed stepped closer, invading the space between them until only inches remained. "Wrong move, BTCH," he murmured, stretching the words slowly, as if trying to savor them. "You walked into the wrong academy." His breath hit her face. His friends chuckled. Alex lifted her eyes, calm, silent, deadly still. She didn't glare, didn't panic, didn't shrink. She simply observed each of them, one after the other: weight distribution, stance, reach, height, confidence levels. All the things her brain was trained to evaluate under pressure, and evaluate quickly. None of them knew what those calm eyes meant. None of them knew they were being measured like threats. None of them knew she had once neutralized 3 armed militants in the dark with nothing but instinct and technique. They saw a quiet girl, a new recruit, someone they assumed would break, but Alex wasn't trembling. She was waiting, waiting to see if they'd make a mistake big enough to justify what her muscles already wanted to do, and they would, they always did. Turner's hand hit her shoulder, not hard enough to injure, but hard enough to test her. A shove meant to provoke, to stir fear, to force a reaction. Alex took a single step back, not because she was pushed, but because she allowed herself the space. The kind of calculated space a fighter creates when they decide the threat in front of them is worth engaging. Reed grinned, misreading her movement completely. There it is. She's scared. Turner snorted. Look at her. She's shaking. Briggs squinted. No, she's not. He was the only one who saw it. The shift. A tiny adjustment in her breathing, the slight tilt of her head, the way her shoulders loosened instead of tensing, the stillness that wasn't fear but control. Alex didn't speak. Silence was a luxury she had learned to weaponize. It made people underestimate her. It made them fill the quiet with their own assumptions. Silence had saved her life before. Here, it merely paved the path to what came next. Reed stepped in again, ready to shove her harder this time. She could see his muscles tense, see the moment he made the decision to escalate, but he moved like a blunt instrument, predictable, emotionally charged, sloppy. She didn't even wait for him to fully extend his arm. The moment his weight shifted forward, she pivoted, a small movement, almost delicate. Her fingers locked around his wrist, twisting it into a joint hold so precise it didn't even look aggressive. His body dropped before he realized why he was falling. Pain shot up his arm, and he gasped, knees hitting the mats with a dull thud. Turner blinked. What the hell? Alex released Reed gently, letting him keep his wrist intact. She didn't need to break bones to send messages. Efficiency was always her style, always quiet, always exact. Turner lunged next, not thinking, just reacting to the humiliation of watching his leader drop. His movements were fast but desperate. Alex sidestepped with a calmness that unsettled even herself. She caught his momentum, redirected it with a clean hip shift, and swept his legs from under him. He crashed to the floor in a messy sprawl, face burning with surprise and embarrassment. Briggs straightened from the wall, eyes wide. No way that just happened. Jace, on the other hand, charged with false confidence. He had boxed before. She could tell from the way he kept his fists up, but he didn't understand distance, didn't understand timing, didn't understand that experience always shows in footwork, not fists. He threw a punch. She stepped inside his guard before he could blink. Her palm struck lightly, just under his ribcage. Not enough to damage, just enough to compress the diaphragm for a heartbeat. Jace froze, eyes round, breath stolen clean out of him. He collapsed to the floor, coughing. Silence swept the gym, heavy, awed. Sharp enough to cut through the thick air. Reed struggled to stand. What are you? He whispered, clutching his wrist. Alex took a slow breath. Her chest rose and fell with the discipline of someone trained to control adrenaline, not ride it. Briggs lifted both hands, palms out. Okay, look. We were just messing around. We didn't mean, yes, you did. Alex said quietly. Her voice wasn't loud, but something about it made the hairs on the back of Briggs' neck rise. It wasn't anger, it wasn't arrogance, it was truth spoken by someone who had seen much darker corners than the inside of a training gym. She stepped back, giving them space, not because she was afraid, but because she was done. The threat had dissolved. They weren't enemies, just children playing at being wolves, but they were shaken, and they finally saw her for what she was, not prey, not a scared new girl, not someone to push for fun. Reed looked at her like she was a puzzle he'd never be smart enough to solve. Seriously, who are you? He asked again, softer this time. Alex's expression didn't change. Calm, controlled, steady. You don't need to know who I was, she said, voice low and even. Just remember this moment before you choose who you corner next. She didn't wait for their response. She didn't gloat or threaten or boast. She simply picked up her water bottle and walked past them, every step measured, relaxed, final. Behind her, 3 cadets groaned on the floor. One stared after her like he'd just seen a ghost, and all 4 finally understood. They had made a mistake, the kind of mistake that changes the hierarchy of a place overnight. By sunrise the next morning, the academy felt different. Not visibly, not in any structural way, but in the way whispers move through corridors and linger in the air like smoke. Every table in the mess hall buzzed with half-heard rumors. 4 guys, she dropped them like she was swatting flies. No one even saw her moved. Just bang, 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 and they were on the ground. Who is she? Alex heard every word as she walked in, tray in hand, but she didn't look at anyone. Her goal wasn't attention, it never had been. She took a seat alone at the far end, as she always intended. But unlike the day before, no one dared to join her. No one dared to test boundaries or take playful jabs. Even the overly confident upperclassmen who normally swaggered through the hall walked with a strange alertness, their eyes flicking toward her and away just as quickly. She ate quietly, measuring every breath, every movement, the way she had been trained to, intentional, calm, present. Her body wasn't trembling, her mind wasn't replaying the fight. No adrenaline crash, no shame, just the familiar clarity that followed controlled conflict. But she felt something else, disappointment. She had come here to disappear. She had come here for a quieter life, away from the shadows of missions, away from the reflex of scanning rooms for exits, away from the burden of being the best weapon in every scenario. She wanted to blend in, be a cadet, a student, a nobody, but last night had already killed that plan. Before she finished her breakfast, a shadow cast itself across the table. A tall figure, posture like carved stone, arms behind his back. Cadet Torres. She didn't have to look up to know who it was. Commander Rourke's voice carried authority no one could ignore. She rose immediately. "Sir, walk with me," he said simply. Eyes followed them as they crossed the hall. The whispering grew, the speculation thick enough to taste. Alex could feel the weight of the gazes on her back, but she kept her shoulders straight, her breathing steady, her presence calm. Rourke led her into his office, a space lined with medals, maps, and photos of past graduating classes. He closed the door, but didn't sit. Instead, he studied her with a look she recognized, the look of someone who knew exactly what she was capable of. He finally smiled, not mockingly, but knowingly. "Thought you'd try to stay low profile." Alex kept her eyes forward. "I did, sir. Didn't work," he said with a dry chuckle. Silence settled for a moment, not tense, just thoughtful. "You're not in trouble," Rourke finally said. "If anything, those boys are lucky you were holding back." She didn't respond. She didn't need to. Her restraint was the only reason last night ended with bruised egos instead of broken bones. Rourke stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You're not here by accident, Torres. You're here because this academy needs someone who understands real discipline, real combat, real stakes." Alex's jaw tightened. She had feared this, that someone knew. That someone pulled strings to bring her here for a purpose she didn't ask for. "I want a quiet life, sir," she said softly, "a normal one." Rourke sighed, not unkindly. "People like you don't get normal, but you do get choice, and right now you can choose how the academy sees you from here on out." When she left his office, the hallway seemed narrower somehow, crowded with cadets pretending not to stare. Some stepped aside respectfully. Others watched with a mixture of curiosity and unease. A few looked downright afraid. She didn't want any of it. Later that afternoon, as she sat alone stretching near the training field, Briggs approached. He moved slowly, as if approaching a dangerous animal. His hands were in his pockets, his usual swagger buried somewhere deep under humiliation and regret. "Hey, Torres," he said awkwardly. She glanced at him. "Briggs," he cleared his throat, shifting on his feet. "Look, yesterday, we messed up badly. We didn't know who you were." Alex held his gaze, calm, steady, unaffected. "You don't need to know who I was," she said quietly. "Just who I choose to be now." Briggs nodded, swallowing hard but grateful. He walked away with shoulders a little lower, ego deflated but humanity restored. Across the field, other cadets watched her with something new in their eyes. Not fear, not awe. Something closer to respect. Alex stood, stretching her arms toward the sky, feeling, for the first time since arriving, the faintest hint of peace. She hadn't wanted to stand out. She hadn't wanted to be known. But now they knew one thing for sure. The new girl wasn't just another cadet. She was someone they should never have cornered, and someone they would think twice before underestimating again.